Hey, thank you, my friends, for joining us and joining me and Karen Nakamura, the amazing butterfly and fine art photographer. I know I keep bringing up butterflies, mostly because it's just I'm just enamored by how she plays with her butterflies. But she's a full-time working photographer, and she is an amazing fine art photographer, and she has built some beautiful images, which she's going to show you the process today. So had you seen part one, she talked about her process and how she captures images. Today she's going to show us how to do that. I am Troy Miller. I'm going to be your host. I am the founder and organizer of F64 Live, which is going to be a in-person event on September 12th and 13th of this year. All of the, goodnesses working with us, hopefully we can have that. And Karen will be one of our instructors. So what she's going to be demoing today and what she has demoed in the past on our webinars, she's going to do live right there in person. And she raises her own butterflies, and she's going to hopefully be able to bring some, right, Karen?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. So even I'm learning about butterflies. I was chatting with her today, like, what can I put out to feed my butterflies? So now's a really good time for all of that. But without any further ado, Karen, I'm going to hand it over to you. If you want to give us a brief introduction of yourself, so people can hear your voice and know who you are, and then you can share your screen when you're ready, and we'll jump right in.
Okay. I love flowers first. I know that Troy said butterflies, but I fell in love with flowers first. And um, it's hard because I'm like looking at myself.
So you fell in love with flowers first, and that's what kind of got you started. You started with flowers because you saw them at Trader Joe's, you said, and you took them
Right.
home and you photographed them. Yeah, and that's kind of been your passion, right? And then of course, over time, you started to add things to them like butterflies and hummingbirds and things like that.
Different kind of birds. It's not just hummingbirds. I've gone to, I don't know if you know Ann Gordon's house, but she
Mm-mm.
loves birds. And I spent hours on her balcony just photographing all the birds because she has a bunch of bird feeders.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd love to do that with my house, but I don't have the space to do that kind of thing. So I feed hummingbirds and I raise a butterfly. So that's as far as it goes as birds and butterflies.
Well, hey, that's great. That's awesome. The fact that that you can bring them in and you can get them to see you. If you'd like, why don't we go ahead and share your screen, and
Okay.
you can jump right in and start playing along. Now, the nice thing is, as Karen and I were talking earlier, this is not scripted. So this is going to be her workflow off the cuff, kind of how she goes through it. She's going to talk you through it. So this is also meant to be interactive for you guys. So if you want to ask questions, please do so in the Q&A, because that way we can feed the information to you as she's sort of going along, and I'll interrupt her as we need to, so she doesn't ruin up her flow too much. So, Karen, why don't you go ahead and share your screen
Okay.
if you haven't done it
Um,
already?
can you see it?
Yes, yes, I see a purple flower.
Okay.
I don't know what it is. I'm not gonna say. I'll just look like an idiot if I try to pick a name.
um, so if we could kind of know like what everybody's Photoshop skills are, can some people answer like if there's a lot of beginners or if there's more advanced so I know um, how fast or how slow I should be going?
Yeah, just get going, and yeah, you guys can just go ahead and share that in the chat if you like. We don't have to put that in the Q&A.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, just throw it in the chat, and I'll keep Karen updated. So Karen, just go fast, because you know what? They can
So fast.
always watch it back later.
Okay. So what I do first is I always clean up my flowers. So I basically either use the cloning tool, which is this one. It depends on where I am.
Okay. Yeah, and we got a lot of advanced to intermediate to advanced. So I think pretty much most people now with Photoshop are pretty intermediate. So
Okay.
So
So we
you're choosing a spot to clone into what you want to fix. You're not using the smart healing brush.
I don't like the smart healing brush. I like the healing brush. So something like this,
Uh huh.
I like to clone first and then use it on whatever I'm cleaning up.
Okay.
Like right,
So in
I'll
that
use
section that you're working on right there, how clean would you make that? I mean, I
pretty
see.
clean.
Okay, so you get rid of like all those little tiny white specks and
Mm-hmm.
just make it perfect. Okay.
Whole leaf, little by little.
Got it.
So let's pretend that we kind of cleaned up everything.
And then I'm assuming you'll take out like the wrinkles and the folds and the
Right.
leaves and okay.
So see, this spot would bother me. So I just kind of select up here. And then Command J would duplicate it.
Right, makes a new layer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then you just kind of bring it down. And I would free transform and warp it to make it match.
So yeah, free transform is Command T.
Mm-hmm. And then I use the eraser too to just kind of blend.
Oh, so you use an erase tool to get rid of the mask as opposed to using a layer mask.
Well, I mix. It
Okay.
depends on the feel. Like, the
Yeah.
artist, you just kind of go with it.
Yep. No, no, I'm asking because, depending on what level of artist we are, a lot of times we see a technique and go, oh crap, I've been doing it wrong the whole time. But there's not a wrong way, right? I mean, there's just this way, which is cool. I've never thought of erasing it. I always make a layer mask and
Well,
do that.
that's right. Like just
It's
using
ex
the
Yeah.
eraser just quickly fixes it.
Isn't it Sandra Pierce? Is Sandra Pierce or oh gosh, I can't think of her name. She does a lot of erasing.
She does.
I don't know if it's Sandra Pierce or who it was. I probably can't think of it, but very nice.
Yeah. So that's kind of how I fix little things like that. And then I'll flatten the image. So layer and then flatten image. Let's fix something like
Oh,
this.
so you're one of these kind of editors that you like to flatten your images as you're happy with a piece. You flatten it and
Yeah.
okay. No,
I, I'm
it's good because who needs a 4 GB file with 500 layers once you've kind of
right.
moved past some things? Makes
Right.
sense.
So then I'm going to duplicate the layer just so you guys can see. But this is what
Command
I
J.
here's.
Yeah.
So if you're on the brush and then you go to multiply, and you just kind of paint the veins. So what I learned from Sandra Pierce is that if you select the color, it darkens with the same color
Yeah.
versus, you know, the dodge tool and burn tool, it turns kind of gray.
Yep.
This doesn't turn gray.
Yep. Yeah, the multiply is one of my favorite layer options blend modes for a layer or a brush. It's really wonderful for color. I mean, because it keeps the colors and increases the contrast and the
Mm-hmm.
saturation in that spot. So that's very interesting. I never thought of using it on a brush.
Right.
All right. Well, webinar's over. I've
So,
already learned like 4 things. So
so I also use screen. It's up here, blending brush. And then I might go in between. So you know that highlights, to bring up the highlights, use screen, right, to push out, and
right.
then shadows push back. So it gives detail. So if you, let's see, make sure.
So when you're doing the
You
screen,
just kind of run
where are you picking the color from for your screen?
here, the colors of the petals.
Okay. Got it. So you would want to pick a lighter color to screen because we're going to take it lighter. And then when you're doing the
Right,
multiply, you're picking a darker color of the color that you want to
right,
multiply. Yeah.
yes. Let's go to multiply. Just kind of give you guys.
That's great.
So if you color in the shadow area, right, which is the lines.
Right. And you're on multiply right now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So you'll go over the entire
Flower
flower.
and the leaves. It depends on what I want. But this is how I darken and lighten.
Now you're doing your hardness is turned all the way down, right? So you have the really soft
Yeah,
touch to your brush.
pretty,
All right.
pretty
Flow.
soft.
Okay.
Yep.
And your flow is 13 and your opacity is like 40-ish, 37. Okay. Yep. Yeah, I like to work with the flow really low so that you can always brush in more.
Right.
Gives you more control.
And plus, I'm not really painting. I use a trackball because that's what I like. Just makes it faster for me. I don't need to paint this. Even if I mean, it depends on what it is. Sometimes I use the Wacom tablet, but for my flowers, I seem to not do that. Something like this.
Nice.
And I'm just eyeballing things.
So you're just looking at it. I mean, this is very interpretive at this point. This is really just about, how much you want to bring out
Mm-hmm.
and trying to keep it. Now, do you find, I've looked at a lot of your work, so it's kind of a loaded question, but um, do you prefer to try to keep things more on the natural side, or do you prefer a little bit more surrealistic side when you're editing stuff like this?
I think it's a mixture of both. Um, Depends on what I'm doing and what I feel like doing. It's kind of like an artist, right? What
Mm-hmm.
inspires you. So you can see the difference. I just like to make things pop out and make things look more um,
Vibrant.
better than it was, I'd
Mm-hmm.
say, right? So you're enhancing the flower,
Right.
basically. But this is how you make things pop out.
So I'm thinking Joshua photographs a lot of reptiles, and he's been doing a lot of snakes lately. So I think this would be a good technique for every scale on the
Mm-hmm.
snakes.
Yeah, if you painted every scale, that's kind of what I did with my birds. The hummingbird that I did is sometimes I paint the feathers, but it's like one tiny little line at a time.
No wonder you win so many times. I mean, look at this work you're putting in. This is amazing.
It's fast. I mean, once you
It
get to
is.
it,
It is. Yeah.
talking to people, trying to teach them how to do it, then it goes by fast.
Yeah. I notice as I'm asking you questions, you're not slowing down at all. So you're good at this. So do you look at the real world and think, man, I could make that building look so much better by a little bit of multiply and and my brush?
I look at the world like I can use portions of things, if that makes sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's like a big library for you, right? You just have to photograph it and capture it.
Right. So like a petal can be a piece of dress.
Mm-hmm.
I think of that, or I see textures versus what it is a lot.
That's awesome.
So
Can you
everybody
show
gets
us oh yeah, there you go.
this one.
Wow.
Like I didn't do it a lot, but you kind of get the gist. Kind of like this one, especially right here. You can tell it's more 3D.
Yeah, and
Right.
it's a really good idea anytime you do retouching to turn that layer on and off because your eye gets used to seeing things. And when
Right.
you flip it on and off, it becomes very obvious where you
Right.
miss something, like a brush stroke or an overlap or, yeah. Yep, I will say so. Karen has some art, several pieces at Pack Artists. That's a site that Peter and I run as well, and so she's one of our artists. And I've taken the art from all of our artists, and I've had to size them up to 60 inches. And when you take an image and you size it up to 60 inches and you look at it one to one, you see every mistake that any artist has ever made. And I'm not just saying this because Karen's my guest right now. There was nothing on her images that I had to fix. They were all
Uh,
super solid. Yeah, because you're so detail oriented. And if you think your artwork is good, like as an artist, you're like, oh man, I nailed this one. Zoom up at 100% at 60 inches and scroll through it, and I think you'll be surprised.
and I work really big. Like my files get like this is a small file, so everybody can work on it. I think I made it 8 by 10,
Right.
but normally when I work, it's like 24 by 36. Just
Yeah. So
as
that's what I was going to ask. What is your starting canvas? So you're going to start working on a piece. You photographed all these little assets and pieces. So is it always the final image? I mean, I'm sorry, the base image like this, whatever that size is, or do you prefer to say, okay, I want to start at 40 inches and size
yeah,
everything to that?
I started big.
Okay. Yeah, but just so everybody knows, she gave us smaller pieces for easy download and speed of demo and playing, and
Right. But if
so
you
yours is
you can
multiplied.
paint it the way you want it to. So see the difference where I just kind of made it shaped the way I want to,
So
just by
you
adding,
added a shadow in there. Basically, it looks like a
yeah.
shadow.
And I might add more of a shadow right here.
Okay.
Does everybody getting
Everybody
it?
good with that so far? Is she going too fast? Let me know.
Hopefully not too fast.
No, this is good. This is really good. It gives me a lot of ideas because I worked the same way for so long. Normally, what I do in a situation that I want to improve the background or improve my image like this is I duplicate the layer, I make that layer multiply. I usually turn it down to like 10%, and then I hide it, through a layer mask, and then I paint everything back in. But it's not as detailed controlled as what you're doing. It's more
Mm,
global. Yeah, so this is really
okay.
nice.
Yeah. The reason why I do that is because then it's exactly how I want it.
So Richard's asking what size how big is the file that you're starting with right now? It's pretty
This is just
small.
and yeah, this is a small one. So that the you're not going to have details that much in the butterflies or the flowers. I would suggest you photograph your flowers and kind of work as big as you can. And I also work 16-bit, so it's pretty big.
And what camera is this?
This is the 5D Mark III.
Okay, so that's like what, 24 megapixel, I think?
Mm-hmm.
16 or
Yeah,
24. Yeah. Yeah. For work like this, if you're going to go big, megapixels can really make a difference,
right.
especially if you're going to crop little pieces out or you're going to size it up a lot. Very
Yeah.
nice.
So basically, it's on gray. I don't care about any of the gray. Um, so I might like adjust flowers and stuff. Let me actually, I was going to warp it, but let me do
Yeah.
the high. Has anybody high pass sharpened?
No, do it. Just do it. Do everything. Just do whatever you want.
Okay, so you duplicate the layer, so Command J, and then you go to filter, other, and then high pass. And normally I'm around 10. And then I soft light, and that's what pops out the flowers. See the difference?
Mm-hmm.
It makes it pop out more.
Got it. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna flatten it, and
I just love that. I mean, that goes like against all the Photoshoppy rules, right? Like, don't flatten your layers. What if you have to go back? But you're that good. You're that confident.
I normally don't go back.
Okay, so we're doing a lasso. Okay.
So yeah, we're doing a lasso because Troy requests a butterfly.
Are Are you going to put a butterfly in one of these?
Yeah,
Yay.
we just kind of make it smaller. And then let's kind of get rid of this one so it's not in the way. So I just, normally I fill, content aware fill to get rid of it.
To get rid of, oh, I see. All right. So you hid the
Right.
background. Yeah. Yeah.
And like I said, I don't care so much about what's in the background because we're taking it out anyways.
Right. So you selected that, made a new layer from it with Command
Mm-hmm.
J. Then you went back to the background layer, selected it again, and basically you just hit delete and it's a content aware fill.
Right. Just so you guys can see better.
Got it.
Okay, and then I'm making this smaller because it makes sense to me. And then I I changed my mind. I want to puppet warp this.
Right. So explain what those pins are that you're dropping in there if you can.
So normally you have a center point, and I normally have 3 points. So with the center point, if you click onto one of the endpoints, it actually bends.
Yeah. So the pins are anchors. So wherever you select to move, the other points, by default, those become anchors.
Right.
Yep.
And let's say you want to move the leaf a little bit. Oops. Got to anchor the leaf.
Yep. Yeah. Puppet Warp's amazing.
Yeah. So that's going to be pretty much my flower. And then maybe like that.
Nice.
Okay. And then normally when I extract, you hit the shift key and the tolerance is around 20.
For your gray.
Mm-hmm.
Got it. So you're just using the magic wand
Right.
to select in there.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah,
I need
you're on your, yeah, there you go.
to
And so do you normally, because you have a nice smooth background and you have a nice contrasty subject with different colors, the magic selection tool is pretty nice.
yeah.
Have you experimented with the other selection options, especially in the latest Photoshop? Because you can select subject matter, you can select based on focus. Have you used any of those?
That
Okay.
um
They're pretty good. I mean, they're getting better. So, but the point is that do what works, but
right.
experiment. Yeah, yeah. There you go. Nice. So, is it holding down the shift key to do the plus?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm missing some of this.
That would have taken me like 4 hours.
What?
I hate doing selections. I think that's the whole reason I don't do composites of any kind, because the selections always stress me out. I always feel like this is going to take me forever.
There's a lot of different ways to do selections.
Yeah.
So I was planning on trying to do 2 for you.
So when you photograph the flower, do you pick your background you're going to photograph on, knowing later that you have to mask it out? I mean, do you think about what, like, oh, maybe I'm going to photograph this against white because it's a really
Yeah.
dark flower, or gray because it's a really light flower? Okay,
Yeah.
so you're choosing when you can, yeah.
When I can and when I remember.
Fair enough.
You're going to find out what the butterfly didn't remember about backgrounds. So I inverse the selection and then I refine edge.
Okay, so now you're only selecting. That's why you didn't care about the gray
Okay.
when you were doing the content to wear fill on
Mm-hmm.
that little piece, right? Because you're just going to get rid of it anyway.
Okay. And these are kind of the numbers that I like. Somewhere around 2.4, 2.5. And then the smoothness is 1, feather is 1.5, contrast is 5, and then shift edge is -5. And I kind of play around with it.
Got it. Yeah, so that negative shift, that's actually moving into the object a little bit. So it
Right.
usually cleans up any of those edges, right?
So if I see something that, I want to try to get rid of, like it doesn't always work. It's not perfect.
But that's something you could always, some of those little nuances you can come back and you can paint in later.
Right.
Wow, did a really good job. So when you're photographing this, are you really intentional about your camera and the depth of field and making sure that your plane of focus is even across the whole subject that you're focusing, like in the studio like
Yeah.
this? Okay, so you got a nice crisp sharpness all the way across your object, your
I
subject.
try to with everything that I shoot, because that way you can match pretty much anything.
Right. Plus, it's easier to mask when you have a sharp edge.
Right.
Plus, it looks right. It looks good.
So it's not going to be exact, but I always do the new layer with layer mask.
Nice.
Let's fill it with black so you can kind of see, maybe white.
Nice.
So you can kind of see on here that, certain things aren't totally how you would want it. So I just kind of fill it in. Normally it's somewhere between 75 and 80 when I clean up things.
Got it. So you're using.
And you know what? It needs to be 100% with normal.
Okay, I was wondering, like, why you're on multiply and you're just working on a layer mask? Yeah. So if you notice, for anybody watching, if you notice on the layer palette on the lower right hand corner, she's on the layer mask, and she's revealing the layer by painting white. Which
Yeah.
the shortcut for switching your colors is X, and if you hit D, it sets your color palette to default, which would be black and white. So just some shortcuts.
Yeah. And sometimes I want to clean up stuff that they missed.
Got it.
You find edge misses.
So a finished image to, your fine art finished image, how much time do you have in Photoshop only?
How much time do I have? I have forever.
Okay. Okay, that wasn't properly. How much time do you spend on an image? I mean, I mean, do you
And
know?
um, sometimes it takes like a day. Sometimes it takes 3 days. Sometimes it takes 3 hours. It
Got
kind
it.
of, yeah,
So I see so there you go.
yeah. Sometimes when it doesn't select that well. And I have a action that fills black.
Oh, okay.
And then sometimes you see the fringe around. So
Yeah.
after I'm done cleaning up everything that I want to clean up, sometimes you have a fringe. And here's one tip that you can do is defringe. And sometimes I do 2, sometimes I do 3. It depends on what I want to do. But did you see it disappear?
Yep. Wow, that's really nice.
Okay, so I think that's pretty much the flower. And normally I just kind of save that.
All right, so that's our flower layer.
Extraction. And let's play around with the butterfly. Okay, so the butterfly is the same thing. So you guys know already, I paint with it first. Whoops, screen. It's too high. Sometimes you like kind of look at it and then you're working and you're like, why isn't it doing the way what I want it to? And then it's on multiple. I don't understand. It's not working.
Yeah, I have my brush palette. I switch back and forth all the time, and sometimes I'll go into have a layer mask that I'm gonna erase, and it's on soft light, and nothing happens. And it's like, why? Why aren't you painting?
Mm-hmm.
Because I had to check all my tools. Photoshop should just know.
Yeah. But I go through all the veins of the butterfly's wing.
Now the white areas, the white spots on there, do you bring those up too? Do you increase the contrast in those?
Not the white because there's detail in it that I don't want to mess with.
Got it. Okay.
You can see it. I might do it, but for the most part, it's kind of how I like it right now. It's more the veins that I play around with.
Just to get that distinction between them, right?
Mm-hmm. Multiply. And see, I'm not working on any layers, so I can't show you guys. Sorry.
So now you're on, okay,
Multiply.
multiplying, you're painting in gray, so you're darkening.
Right.
See, I'm catching on.
Yeah. So um, the reason why I'm doing this is because I know that I'm going to be putting it on the flower. So it's going to be dark underneath here because the petal's going to be right there.
Ah, look at you. So when we talked when you were when you were on before, we were talking about how a lot of the stuff you photograph is a little bit flat for
Right.
good lighting and detail, overall lighting, and then you'll paint in a shadow or you'll add a shadow. And
Right.
this is how you do the shadow with your multiply.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, you saw the flower and the lights coming from the left. So I might click here and then highlight right here.
Right, to match the direction of light.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, very important because that's a big giveaway, right? When the light's coming from two different directions.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, as a judge, I know you've judged and I've judged, and I know that when judges look at this stuff, sometimes they might not know exactly what's wrong with an image, but it feels wrong, and that can be lighting. That can just be the direction of lighting.
Right. And I like to enhance antennas.
Those are not. That's not a sentence I thought I would ever hear. Right? Like what's a unique sentence that you'll hear amongst photographers? I like to enhance antennas. That's how you know who you want to talk to at the party. If everybody goes, "What?" Nope, moving on.
So this just gives detail in the hair.
Was this is this image of the butterfly focus stacked or is it one exposure?
No, it's one exposure.
Do you know what the aperture was?
Pi 16. That's my favorite
Okay.
when I shoot. Um, it might be 11.
Do you ever have to stack or is that normally good enough?
Well, remember that flower it was an orchid, um, lady slipper orchid
Mm-hmm.
that that was focus stacked.
Okay. But the butterflies don't really do they hold still long enough for you to focus stack them?
This one does because it's in my studio. Well, makeshift studio, butterfly studio.
Got it.
Okay,
Was
you got
was this one that
this.
just hatched fresh? Was one that you
Yes.
raised? So they're
So
they're more mellow.
when they first come out of their chrysalis, they kind of they're doing things. They're filling up their wings with the liquid, so they can't really fly away. So that's a good time to like kind of pose them the way you want them to be. So if you tap their butt a little bit, or actually the back of the wing a little bit, then they actually open their wings and start to flap. So
Oh, okay.
yeah, that's the fun of raising butterflies, is you get to play around with them after they're born. So
Again, another one of those statements. This is just full of those. I think these are. I think there's T-shirts in here. I like to enhance antennas. You touch their butt till their wings open up. Yeah.
okay, so basically let's pretend that I completely enhanced it.
Okay.
And then we flatten it down. Whoops. Flatten. Okay, so when I extract, the butterflies is a little different, because the antennas, with everything that I've used, they just kind of disappear. So I always select the antennas first, and then I'll select the butterfly.
For masking, right?
Right.
Oh,
Uh,
okay. So you're doing independent layer selections, and then you're going to mask those layers.
right.
Oh, okay.
Okay, we could do the same thing. It's like I do it a lot quicker than this, so pink, pink is pretty.
And why are you adding the color?
So I can see that people can see the back.
Got it. So that's underneath the two layers that you just selected.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
So because the antennas are so smooth, like whoops, I wouldn't do this with fuzzy antennas. But you could pretty much just select it, and then you press delete.
Oh, okay. Now you're saying that if you were to do that as the whole image, there's a good chance that you'll lose the antennas because they're too small in the.
Yes,
Okay.
because of the processes.
Got it. No,
But
it makes sense. No, it's a good trick.
yeah, and see, it's pretty clean.
Yep.
And for this one, um, we're going to go to select. Whoops, wrong side. This one. We're selecting the butterfly. Select, and then color range. And what I do is I click on the shift key, and I'm just selecting the white around.
Got it. And then what are we looking for to see that it's actually selecting?
It's right here.
Oh, okay. Got it.
And then you can play around with it. But I like it so I can see it black.
Nice.
You can play around with the range. But now you have the selection, right? And then you can press Q and you can see what's selected. And I use a brush because it doesn't always, did it again. Always be on the 100% in normal on your brush when you're painting.
Yes, when you're painting your mask, yeah.
You're
Nothing
but
nothing worse than having holes in your subjects.
right. But the reason, oops, a little bit too much. the the reason why you do the color range is because it's white. It just makes the selection better. And then after you finish, whoops, I picked the wrong number. Color. I thought it would be fun doing pink. Yep, there we go. That's better.
Got it.
And then you just keep painting. Any of the blue that you see?
Right. So you're just making sure you're just double checking to make sure that mask is really,
Yeah.
really clean. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Very nice. Masking made easy.
Yeah.
Where's my participants? Wow, we have a lot of people in here, Karen.
We do.
27
That makes me
people.
nervous.
Don't screw up. Don't be nervous. They're all friends. Everybody that's in here is super cool, so you're good.
Okay, so I press the cute key to bring it back to the marching ants. And then we go to modify and expand. And then normally I do around 2 pixels. And that kind of gets rid of any of the artifacting that was going on that you saw
Right.
before.
Right.
Okay. And then you press the Alt key and then you add a layer mask and that gets rid of it.
Oh, very nice. Okay.
You see
Makes
that?
sense. Yeah, the Alt key makes the mask black, right? So it
Right.
blocks. Yep.
And then I like to select the black areas because it doesn't select it totally well. And then just filling with black. Everybody knows how to fill with black?
Let's assume not.
Okay. So you go to edit, fill, and then you go to black and you press OK.
And you made an action for that because you do that a lot.
Right, I do it a
Yeah.
whole lot.
Yeah.
So you deselect and you have your selection.
Beautiful.
And then you combine the images and then you merge layers.
Okay, so those are the two layers that you selected separately. So now you've merged
Right,
them back together. So now the
right,
butterfly has a head. Perfect.
right. So now they're all everything's selected and the antennas are together. And then we just kind of save this, save as.
Makes sense.
Does anybody have questions? No questions?
Do we have yeah? If you guys have questions, there's 27 of you out there. Somebody's got to have a good question for Karen. But you're doing such an amazing job, Karen. Nobody has questions.
Okay.
Just keep going. You're good.
All right. So for the background, I'm just going to do an 8x10 so it goes fast.
What would you normally do?
24x36 if I can. As big
Right.
as I can. Because when you print big prints, you want them to have like really good detail.
Got it.
And I just kind of pick a color. Purple.
Now this is a color. This is a just because color, right? This is just for separation, or is this actually going to be the background tone of your final?
Background, but because we're using the adjustment layer, I can change the color to anything I want.
Got it.
So, you know, it depends. I'm going to be playing around with the colors. So for my backgrounds, I always use textures. Are people working with me?
I don't know. I don't know. I can't see. I can't see what they're doing.
Uh,
I'm going to guess that everybody's watching you, and they're going to go back and do this later because you're moving really fast.
I'm trying to give you like all the stuff that I do so you can like
It's
do it.
great. No, this is great. This is perfect.
This
Now
is like,
I noticed that you dragged and dropped the image into the same layer that you were working on.
right.
If you wanted to be on a separate layer or document, you would drag it onto the icon or open it up separately. So this included it in your layer
Yes,
stack.
right. And then I like to soft light. And that's when I can see what color it is. And I just kind of play around with it. Blue. Over here. And then normally when I want a window, I use a marquee, a selection tool, marquee.
Okay, so you're under the texture, above the
Yeah,
color on a separate
yeah,
layer.
we'll do this.
Oh, okay. Now you moved it.
Yeah, and I feel black.
Oh, okay.
When I'm nervous, I don't. I just kind of do
No,
things.
you're good. You're good. Don't be nervous. You're just talking to me. It's just you and me. This is
Okay,
great.
so
This
we're
is this
gonna.
is this is awesome stuff, and you're doing amazing. So this is great.
And I don't explain myself that well. Okay, so I made a layer, filled it with black. So that's my window, and then I drag whatever texture I want on it,
Oh, okay.
and then I clip it into like
Yeah.
a clip.
Can you go back and show how you clipped it into the layer below? Because that's critical.
Okay, so right here where you press Alt, so here's a
Yeah.
layer, and then you clip it into the clipping mask. So that's
Yeah.
what I a
So
clipping mask.
watch her pointer in the lower right hand corner over the layers.
Here.
You have to hover on that line between the above layer and the
Mhm.
lower layer, and then you hold down the Alt and you click. And what that does is any layer that's above that will only apply to the layer directly below it. So instead of affecting the entire stack.
Right, and I might bring down the opacity a little bit,
Nice.
and then if I have it the way I want to, then I rasterize. I do that a lot.
Right. Right. I rasterize all the time.
You do?
Sometimes just
Yeah.
randomly I'll rasterize. It's another T-shirt. I'm telling you.
And I
If you wore a shirt that said "I love to rasterize," there's only certain people that are going to get that, and those are the people you want to talk to.
right. That's already in there.
So you added another one, soft light. Okay,
Mm,
so you're blending the two textures together. Perfect.
yeah. So I'm just kind of playing around with it, see what I like.
Okay. Yeah, and the blend modes on stacking layers can vary dramatically from what the layer is and what your blend mode is. So you can go everything from multiply to lighten to you name it. It's kind of like you need to play with them to kind of find your favorite. But soft and dark light's really nice.
Right. That's my favorite, soft light.
Yeah, I like soft light.
So a lot of times I create new layers, clip it in, and then I get the gradient tool, and I like black.
So you can use a gradient tool
Hmm.
and black. Okay.
So I use a gradient tool, use black, created a gradient, and then I did a soft light.
Got it. From the bottom,
And then,
three to little chin. Okay.
yep.
Here's a base. Yep.
And I might duplicate it and then transform and then flip it vertical to be up here too.
Yeah. Now notice all these layers that she's added that Karen just recently added. Notice how she's made applied them to the layers below. So it's only going to affect that bottom layer, the black, and not everything.
Right.
Yeah, I did an Aaron Nace from Flern. I bought one of his tutorials, and that one little trick right there just blew my mind. That made
Yeah.
so much sense because I was trying to mask and brush everything in, and
Yeah. Um, masks are great.
oh yeah,
Clipping masks are great. Okay, so we have the flower. Let's bring in the flower. So this one we have to open. Wrong one. There we go. And then we could just drag it in. Free transform. Oops, too small. And I just kind of find a spot that I like.
got it.
And let's select the outside of the flower.
Okay, how did you do that? So you've got your flower layer in there.
It's the magic wand tool,
Oh, okay,
right?
because it's really it's the only object in the scene, so it's
Yeah.
easy to select.
Hmm.
Got it. Got it.
And then you just inverse,
So now you're getting just the flower. Yeah.
right? And then let's go to edit, fill, and then black. Oops, new layer. Sorry, new layer, fill black. It's because I'm winging it.
No, you're good. And you know what? Admittedly, it is very difficult to explain as you're working because a lot of this stuff you do by muscle memory, right? So it's like me photographing a bride. Like it's super easy just to work, but when I have to explain it,
Right.
it's slow. It just interrupts your flow. So you're doing great. I love it.
Okay. So I normally, with the one that I fill black, the layer that I fill black, I blur, actually Gaussian blur.
Oh, to create kind of a shadow. Is
Yep.
that what you're doing? A little separate. Oh, okay. Now, Annette asked why you left the blue, but I don't know how many steps ago that was. Was there a blue layer
Left
that you?
switch blue.
I don't know. Sorry, Annette. I probably didn't get to that at the right time in her workflow. So, was it like a blue or a purple that you put on the background? Remember you used
Oh,
a
right here,
purple?
this one.
Yeah.
This ended up being purple.
Okay.
Yeah.
That was just a
Because it
mask.
doesn't matter. It's just so people can see.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah, it's just dark so people could see the background or the flower pop out. And I wanted to show the fringing with
Oh,
that.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think I want to darken this a little bit.
You're doing good, Karen. You're already at 55 minutes.
Oh, good.
Yeah, see it? It's great. It's great. And you know, Peter hasn't complained once.
Oh, this must be the blue background. That's just so you can see.
Okay.
And then also, orange and red, and that's blue is almost opposite color,
Okay.
right?
So you put a color in there to create separation for you as you're working to make sure your mask is correct and
Right.
the edges are clean and
And it's more like for everybody watching
right.
because normally I just kind of do things and I just turn it black and I look and I see how I like it and then let it go.
Perfect. Yeah, and that says got it. Okay. Another question successfully answered. Oh, there's the butterfly.
Right.
See, I want to see how you do the feet. That's the part that I was wondering is how you make it look, you know, like the feet's grabbing the flower and not still on the stick.
Okay. So basically, very simple. You're going to say, oh my gosh.
Well, before you do that,
Okay.
can you explain to me how you chose that placement? Right, because you moved it around and that was the spot. So you're looking at things that maybe we don't see. So why there?
Just because it felt good.
Okay, so the whole butterfly is there. I know you created that space for the whole
Right.
butterfly. That's wonderful. Now, when you're placing the butterfly on the flower, where it's going to sit on the flower, are you looking at the legs? Are you looking at?
I'm looking at the legs and where I can like move the legs um, when I put the butterfly on. I'm
Okay,
actually doing it. I don't know if you could see how you can kind of see where it's going to go.
right, right. I like how you just wing it, but it's so good. You're not winging it because you've done it so many times. But
So I kind of use a eraser tool, not, yeah, eraser tool at 81%, 79, 80, somewhere around there. Because it's such a small portion of the image.
oh, okay. So you're just gonna erase everything but the legs. Got it.
Yep, because it's just a little stick. I could do a mask if you guys want me to.
No,
Should
it's
we do
fine.
that?
No, this is good. No, this is good. This is how you would do it. This is
It depends. Sometimes I do a mask, sometimes I don't.
And why on the erase tool, what percentage are you at? You're at 100% flow, 100% opacity. So it is on
Yes.
100%, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
100%.
It's the hardness. Yeah, it's the hardness that was at 80%.
Right.
That's so
Mm-hmm.
that the edges aren't super sharp. Yeah, because if I remember, the rule of thumb is that the edge of the brush should have the same softness as the focus of your subject, the edge of your
Right.
subject. Yeah.
Yeah. I do that all the time. And then I might want to paint. Let's see. Right here.
So you're gonna paint the leg back in basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. So you pick the color. So you're in normal mode, opacity 80, flow is 59. Just give you a little bit to work with, and you're choosing color in the leg, and you're just connecting the leg back together where it was hidden behind the branch.
Right.
Oh, okay.
And then we're going back to the eraser, erasing this little part right here that's gray.
Got it.
Okay, that looks good.
And it might seem a little overboard to zoom in so far on such a big image and work at the pixel level. Initially, you might think that, or some people might think that, but it really makes a difference in the fine detail that you can see when you print it and you blow it up. Because when you print it, a lot of stuff shows up.
Yeah, because even though this is like a small image, I do go to the pixel level.
Right, right.
Yeah.
So now you've
So,
selected the leg.
yep, this leg right here. And then
Nice.
this is what happens when I'm winging things.
Okay, no, it makes sense. So I'm just kind of narrating a little bit. So what you did is you erased the leg from the layer after you copied it. So now you can manipulate
Mhm.
it. Perfect.
And somewhere right there. Maybe lengthen it a little.
I guess it helps to know butterfly anatomy a little bit so you can put the leg
Right.
in the right place.
And then I would think that the leg would be behind the pedal.
Right.
Put that in too. And then somewhere right here, I would create a new layer. And I'm going to make shadows by the leg.
Okay. So I'm gonna guess that you're gonna use the multiply tool.
No, I'm just
No.
painting.
And you're painting. What
Hmm.
what color are you painting in there?
Purple, I'm selecting from the flower.
Got it. I knew that. I just wanted you to say it out loud.
Okay, sorry.
It's okay. You could use the multiply, right? I mean, that
You
would
could,
work. Okay. Got it.
but that makes it look more.
Yeah.
And then because the butterfly's there, you might want to darken it. This is when you're on the flower level. This one. Yeah.
So a good exercise for anybody doing this would be to notice what a butterfly or a human or anything sitting on an object looks like at that direction of light. So when you're
Mm-hmm.
doing your artwork, you know where to put the shadows because you can guess, right? But if you pay attention to nature, it can help you guess better
Right.
or yeah. Right. And you're going to darken on the underside of the butterfly
Yeah.
like where you did
But
it earlier too, yeah.
you don't have to clip in. So this way I can actually clip in and then I could create a shadow.
And you were worried that you weren't going to be able to get a butterfly in there in under an hour. And it took you 57 minutes and you had a butterfly in the shot.
Oh my God.
Look at that. And you
Okay.
masked around antenna and legs and You're too modest there. Okay, so you painted
Yep.
in black on a different layer, and now you're gonna change the opacity.
Yes. To be.
So now when I look at your images hanging in Peter's office, the giant ones, I'm gonna be looking even closer.
Are you looking at what I did?
Yeah. Well, there's like two 40-inch images hanging in there on acrylic. They're gorgeous.
So see how I darken that so it's more
Uh-huh.
natural.
Makes perfect sense.
Yep. That's kind of how I do my butterflies.
Fantastic.
And then I might want to this one on the layer before the texture 117.
Mm-hmm.
I might want to drop that in.
Oh, nice. Got it. Do we have any questions for Karen at this point? This would be a really good time to start throwing some questions in.
Overlay.
So you're testing which blend mode that you like
Mm-hmm.
for that texture. Right. Okay. Good. Good.
Normally I do multiply and they just bring up the opacity. That looks good. And then I'll
Right.
drop a shadow right here on the clipping mask.
Got it. Uh, and I know this wasn't an image for that, but if you were going to have your image leave the frame, have your flower leave the frame a little
Mm-hmm.
bit. Remember, like coming out.
Yeah,
Uh, how would you do that? I mean, you would just have these underneath layers slid to a different location, right? Like just slide them.
right. Yep. So we could do that. So we have these, this one.
Yeah, I'm always really uh, interested to see people work and then how they name their layers. Like people who work in Photoshop and are super super organized. And then I'm so glad to see that you don't name your layers because I don't feel so bad. Because I always go back. I'm like, okay, I've got 50 layers. One of these is the smoke. One of these is that.
You know, it depends. Sometimes I work and I group things up. Sometimes I work just kind of how I'm working right now, because this is one of the more basic images that I've done. So I kind of know where everything is.
Right. Right.
So what we want to do is select all of these.
So while you're doing that, do you find that you photograph flowers and then mask them out and create a stock? Do you have stock of pre-masked butterflies and flowers and backgrounds that you might go to, or do you just always work from scratch?
I don't have it masked out. That's kind of, to me, a waste of time for me. I don't want to mask something that I'm not going to use. So yeah,
So like this flower though, would you save this as a masked asset somewhere and maybe use it again later, or would you just remask it again later if you needed it?
yeah, I would just remask it.
Got it.
So what is this one?
I tried to trick you up, didn't I?
You did. And I'm not saying what I'm doing.
You're hunting for the layer that flower's on.
Yeah, okay, so what I did was I selected the butterfly plus the flower and I made it bigger because Troy wanted to see how I put things outside a frame.
Right.
So butterfly's already in front of the frame. And what I do is I see what's gonna pop out of the frame and then I select it. So I make it how I want it and then I select it. And then I duplicate it, Command J. And
Oh,
that's how you,
nice. Oh, that's so cool. That's so slick. Perfect.
but that's basically what I do. I might like um add some, let's see, if I duplicate this one, whoops, I might put it in front of the flower to make it more look real.
Okay, so you added that gradient. So yeah, I was going to ask you, what would be some of the finishing touches? So you get to this point, you've done all the masking and you've done the placement and you've moved it around. So now, what would be some of your finishing touches that you might apply?
It's more tuning it
Yeah, like right now, you're just
and
adjusting the
tuning.
composition and
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
like I'm obviously gonna have to fix that, which is
Fix what? Yeah. Now fix what? Which part of that? Can you highlight what that is that you're talking about that you want to fix?
um. There we go.
Where the two lined up, right?
Yeah, it's where to go.
I think you hit it when you brought that layer in. That layer.
Okay, hold on.
That's okay. Yeah, right there.
There, right there.
Yeah. Yeah,
So what
you gotta
is
watch for those things, right? When you're working fast or you're just kind of cranking along, you gotta like really keep an eye on that.
right?
Yeah, those are big tells that somebody's done some Photoshop work.
That's what judges do. So what I did was I duplicated the gradient layer,
Uh
and
huh.
then above this one, the closed iris, and I just brought it above and I clipped it into the iris. So it's just lining the iris. See it?
Oh yeah, so it matches the other one. Great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and you duplicate the layer by Command J.
Yes, Command J.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. Well, that's great. Look at that. Well, that's perfect, my dear. Well, if we don't have any questions, you've just about wrapped this whole thing up. Holy
No
cow.
question.
Let's go ahead and well, we can leave the screen share up for a little bit. Yeah, we don't have any questions coming in, so I'm gonna go ahead and stop the screen share. So it's gonna put just you and me back on camera. Yay! All right, let me reduce that down. So that was amazing, Karen. Thank you so much for sharing that. That was a great lesson. And in an hour, you did it in what are we at? An hour and 11 minutes. Yay! Fantastic. So everybody has the assets to work and play with. If you don't have the assets, you can yeah, let's see how we could do this after the fact. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description in the YouTube channel so those assets will be there. All right. Hey guys, thank you so much for coming. Thank you so much for spending time with Karen. And Karen, thank you
Thank
for
you for coming.
sharing everything you did.